A brand new 13-year brain study traced a line from screen time at 1 to anxiety at 13. But what matters isn't the hours, it's what the screen is replacing. 168 kids, 13 years, a specific brain change, and a protective factor nobody's talking about. Here's what happened. A team in Singapore published a paper in eBiomedicine last year. 168 children followed since infancy, screen time measured at ages 1 and 2, brain scans between 4 and 7, decision-making tasks at 8, anxiety assessed at 13, and they found a pathway. Higher screen time before age 2 predicted specific brain changes. Those predicted slower decision-making, which predicted higher anxiety at 13. Every outlet picked it up. Parent forums filled with guilt. But here's what got lost. That link only showed up for screens before age 2, not at 3, not at 4. And the study found a protective factor, something the brain development literature, Siegel, Kuehl, Posner, has been circling for decades. Once you see what the study actually found and what it didn't, you stop catastrophizing, and you start doing something measurably useful. Here's the short version. What changes your baby's brain isn't screen time in hours. It's what the screen replaces, and when. Before age 2, the brain is tuning itself to whatever shows up most. That's called a sensitive window. And once you understand the window, the whole conversation changes. There are 3 things the research actually says, and once you can see them, the guilt starts to lift. First, there's a specific window in early development where the brain sets its defaults. Second, the type of screen matters far more than the amount. Not all screens feed the same circuit. And third, the same study that made the scary headlines also found a protective factor. Something measurable, something most of the coverage left out. Let me walk you through all 3. Let's start with the first one, the sensitive window. Your baby's brain is doing one main job in the first 2 years, building itself. 90% of adult brain volume is in place by age 5, and the foundational wiring, especially for attention, regulation, and language, is laid down earliest. The technical term for this is experience-dependent plasticity. What it means is your baby's brain takes whatever input it's getting most and specializes for that input. If your baby is mostly hearing language, watching faces, and tracking slow, real-world movement, those circuits get wired in. If your baby is mostly watching rapid scene cuts, fast-changing color and sound, the visual cognitive control system specializes for rapid novelty. That's what the Singapore team saw on the brain scans between 4 and 7. Premature specialization in the networks that handle visual attention and cognitive control. Patricia Kuhl's work at the University of Washington has shown the same pattern for language. Babies exposed to back-and-forth conversation build different neural phoneme maps than babies exposed to passive audio. Same baby, same hours, wildly different circuits, depending on who is on the other end. The brain grows the world it's given. What this means for you is that the fear isn't really about the screen itself. It's about what your baby isn't doing in those minutes. When a 1-year-old watches fast-paced content, they're not watching your face. They're not tracking your mouth-forming sounds. They're not being talked to in the back-and-forth way that builds language circuits. That's the trade-off the brain is making. And once you see it that way, it stops being about guilt and starts being about opportunity cost. Which leads to the next piece. If it's about what the screen replaces, then not all screens are doing the same thing. A FaceTime call with grandma is not the same input as an autoplay YouTube reel. A slow-paced educational show you're watching together is not the same as a fast-cut TikTok. And that distinction is where most parenting advice collapses into a useless single number. Onto the second piece. And this is where most advice gets it wrong. Here's the thing most studies aren't measuring. The type of content. The Gusto study lumped it. Most studies do. They count minutes of screen time. But a 20-minute video call with a grandparent activates the same social bonding and language circuits as an in-person conversation. Eye contact, turn-taking, joint attention. 20 minutes of passive TikTok, with rapid scene cuts every 2 or 3 seconds, trains the attention system to expect constant stimulation. Same 20 minutes. Completely different brain input. Jenny Radesky's work at JAMA Pediatrics and the Children and Screens Institute's 2025 guide keep pointing to the same pattern. Co-viewing with parental narration produces up to 22 times the real-world transfer of learning compared to screens alone. And Andrew Pshabilsky's team at Oxford has shown across tens of thousands of adolescents that the aggregate effect of screen time on well-being is tiny, less than 1% of the variance. Because lumped together, most of it cancels out. The signal is in the type. So before you cut screen hours, audit what those hours are. Fast cut, passive, solo, or slow, co-viewed, interactive, or social, like a video call. 3 very different inputs. Your job isn't to hit 0, it's to shift the mix. And the third piece? This is the one the headlines left out. The Singapore team found something else. When they looked at which children showed the weakest version of the link between infant screen time and later brain changes, one factor stood out: parental reading. Specifically, children whose parents read to them frequently at age 3 showed a significantly weakened association between early screen exposure and the brain changes that appeared at 4 to 7. Reading didn't erase the effect, but it measurably buffered it. And this isn't mysterious. Reading with your child is dense language input, plus FaceTime, plus slow pace, plus emotional attunement, every ingredient that the passive screen pathway was missing. 15 minutes a day is enough to show up in the data. The other lever, which didn't make the headlines either, is sleep. Children's melatonin systems are unusually light-sensitive, more than adults. So screens in the hour before bed delay sleep onset, and poor sleep is itself a direct driver of later anxiety. 2 levers, both measurable, both yours. So here's what the study is actually saying. Your baby's brain will grow the world it's given. Before age 2, it's setting its defaults for attention, for language, for regulation. And whatever shows up most becomes the baseline. That's not a verdict. It's a window. And that window is why what your baby isn't doing matters as much as what they are. So the next time you pick up the phone to hand it over, you won't hear screen time is bad. You'll hear the real question. What is this 20 minutes replacing? And on the days it's replacing something irreplaceable, FaceTime, language, shared attention, you'll make a different call. On the days it's buying you a shower you badly need, you'll hand it over without guilt. That's the shift. So here's what you now know. There's a sensitive window before age 2 where your baby's brain sets its defaults. The type of screen matters far more than the total hours. Passive, co-viewed, and social video calls feed completely different circuits. And the same study that scared everyone also named the protective factor: reading and sleep, both measurable, both yours. All of that comes down to one thing. The brain grows the world it's given. Before age 2, the window is open, and the best thing you can feed it, still always, is you. Save this one for the next time a news headline makes you feel like you've already failed as a parent. You haven't. And if this made something click for you, hit like. It genuinely helps other parents find this channel. If you want more of the brain science behind raising small humans, subscribe. We post a new episode every week. Next episode, why your toddler isn't ignoring you, even when it feels exactly like they are. Spoiler, it isn't defiance. Their brain literally can't hear you yet.